Earlier in this space, I commented on the several paths by which we are going extinct. This video points out the why underlying the how. Thomas Hobbes was a 17th century English political philosopher. He pointed out in his 1651 book, Leviathan, that we face a truly dire future in the absence of a strong, undivided government. In the absence of such a government, according to Hobbes, we must expect unrestrained, selfish competition leading to human lives that are solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. In other words, we can expect an outcome much like the one we are witnessing today. Other philosophers propose anarchism as a gentler path. As American writer Edward Abbey pointed out, quote, "Anarchism is not a romantic fable, but the hard-headed realization based on 5,000 years of experience that we cannot entrust the management of our lives to kings, priests, politicians, generals, and county commissioners." End quote. I tend to agree with Abbey, and I realize we're about 7 billion people and a couple thousand years too late to implement anarchism. As a result, I am considerably more pessimistic about our future than either Hobbes or Abbey. On a beautiful planet being ground into dust by industrial civilization, every day I witness numerous cases of selfishness. Contemporary individual humans tend toward selfishness and, far too often, self-absorption. Witness the lines at the grocery store, or the typical human behavior in the midst of automobile traffic, or the obsession with acquisition of privilege at the expense of others. The list goes on. Obviously, it wasn't always this way. Until humans acquired the ability to grow, store, and distribute grains at scale, we did not allow sociopathy to become common. I've no doubt sociopathy and psychopathy were genetically as common during the initial 300,000 years of our species as they are today. Yet there is very little evidence of humans grinding the living planet into dust, and no evidence at all that early humans triggered a mass extinction event. Contemporary society, what we call civilization, is accomplishing both today, the grinding and the mass extinction. Obviously, it wasn't always this way. American author Daniel Quinn correctly describes civilization as the ability to lock up the food. That's what growing, storing, and distributing grains at a large scale will do for a society. Having the ability to lock up the food means surpassing Dunbar's number of humans, which means sociopathy and psychopathy are expressed. Once there is privilege to be gained and retained through the power offered by relative anonymity, sociopaths assume control. How did we reach the state in which such an outcome is expected? How did we develop the ability to lock up the food? The climate plays a major role. During at least the first 300,000 years of our species on Earth, we lived in bands and tribes. I'm not romanticizing the lives of hunters and gatherers, but it's easy to understand that there is very little potential for grifters to persist when all tribal members know each other. There is no advantage to ripping off your fellow tribe members if you'll soon be caught. And being caught isn't much fun when it leads to being banned from your tribe and therefore forced into the sort of solitary independence few people can survive for long. For more than the initial 300,000 years of our species, the climate did not allow grains to be grown at a large scale. A few thousand years ago, for the first time on Earth with Homo sapiens present, the temperature rose as we emerged from the last ice age and then stabilized. This latter feature is particularly important because a cool, stable planetary temperature provides the ability to grow grains at scale. This cool, stable temperature arose once during the last 2 billion years of planetary history. It also arose once during the 320,000 years or so of our existence as a species. And when it arose, civilizations popped up all over the planet like trolls on YouTube for the first time. Never before had a cool, stable temperature allowed humans to conveniently store food for the hard times. Never before had a cool, stable temperature encouraged human population overshoot. A few thousand years ago, we could have turned away from grains. A few societies did, in fact. The relatively few survivors of collapsed civilizations, such as the Olmec and Chacoan, decided, never again. They returned to their roots as hunters and gatherers, and therefore persisted until their lands were colonized by murderers from Europe. Today, there's no turning back. In the absence of a time machine, we cannot maintain industrial activity, which is overheating the planet. Neither can we reduce industrial activity, which would reduce aerosol masking and therefore ratchet up overheating very rapidly. In other words, maintaining, increasing, and decreasing industrial activity all have the same outcome. Earth is heated beyond the ability to sustain human life, and therefore all life on this most amazing planet. We don't even need the 450-some nuclear power plants to melt down in our wake to destroy all life on Earth. The same horrible outcome will result from the exceptionally rapid rate of environmental change associated with loss of aerosol masking. In short, we're done, and we're taking the living planet with us. I'm only the messenger. My recent scholarly work depends upon the research of others. I'm as displeased as anybody else by the short remaining time for our species and the consequences of our societal actions. As a result, I've offered a way through for individual human beings. If you are interested, please read the About page at GuyMcPherson.com.